Hey, how you guys doing? This is Ryan Larson. Welcome to the podcast Lounge with Larz. I'm going to be your host on this new episode, our first episode. It's a very exciting one. I brought my good friend Aaron to kind of talk us through a little bit of the podcast and what I'm going to be doing moving forward. But I'm going to quickly introduce Aaron. Aaron, how you doing?
Good, man. How are you, Ryan?
Doing great, man. Excited to be here with you. Yeah, we've been in the trenches on this podcast for months, it seems like, but now we have everything kind of up and running. And yeah, we're just jumping on here and hopefully have a great conversation with you today.
Yeah, let's dive into it. So, Ryan, what is your podcast Lounge with Mars about? And in your mind, what is kind of the vision or the purpose that it serves?
Yeah, the podcast is going to be designed to talk to entrepreneurs who have the same similar mindset as I do. I'm a very hardworking individual. I want to sit down with guests who have this same work ethic. And then also too, Aaron, I want to make sure that I connect with these individuals, these CEOs, entrepreneurs, startup businesses, at the business level, and at the entrepreneur level, but also too, like my big thing with this podcast is I want to make sure that I'm connecting with them personally. I want to make sure that we could have a good conversation on what their interests are, what their hobbies are, what they like to do. Because what I find in this life is if you have those passions that drive you to wake up every morning, gets you out of bed, those passions will sometimes or usually fall into the same realm as being a business owner. So if you love what you're doing, if you're out hiking, biking, running, and you're enthusiastic about doing those hobbies or passions, I think that just, falls into place being a business owner and entrepreneur, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Yeah, sure does. What do you see as kind of the perfect kind of guest for your podcast, or what are the type of guests you'll be inviting onto the podcast?
Yeah, thought leaders, entrepreneurs, CEOs, C-suite leaders, making sure that I'm building a tribe of like-minded individuals. That is my biggest hope to this podcast. And once again, it's going to be it's going to be a fluid conversation. Once again, we're going to lean into the business side, but also too, we're going to be leaning in on the personal side, but making sure that we're ending that podcast with takeaways that listeners could really implement and then connect to as well. And once again, I'm trying to have this tribe mentality, this community, and build that out to make sure that everyone is getting value from the podcast. So that's my hope, Aaron.
Yeah, love that. Is there a kind of a unique angle or perspective your podcast will offer? I think you mentioned it a little bit earlier about maybe touching on their personal hobbies and interests and passions as well. But anything else that comes to mind, what kind of differentiates you from maybe other shows in this space?
Well, you know, yes, and I'm gonna just kinda lean into, like, who I am real quick because I think that's the difference maker. My story is probably a lot different from others. I was a fireman for 25 years. I started my own financial firm. We have been, in business for almost 12 plus years now, going strong. So I'm a business owner. And then I also recently started a real estate fund. So we actually raise capital from investors, and then we deploy that capital into like single family homes. So what I want to make sure is people know who they're listening to, because I really do have some certain skill sets, by being a blue collar worker turning into a white collar worker. So I could really offer and connect with, pretty much anyone out there. So I think that's the biggest takeaway is you're going to be listening to an individual who really has, pounded the streets. I mean, literally, in the city of Phoenix, servicing, the clients that we run on, being an advocate. And what I want to make sure is I'm being an advocate to the listeners. I'm being an advocate to the podcast guests that we're going to be having on, and making sure that there are really good takeaways at the end of the podcast that the listeners can implement in their day-to-day lives.
Yeah, no, that's amazing. What do you let's continue with that theme of your story. So let's spend a couple of minutes here and really dive a little bit deeper in your story, from childhood to, growing up, your profession, your career. How has all that kind of given you a unique perspective or insight that makes you feel called to start this podcast?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's been so many things that have been thrown at me in this life. Definitely wasn't. I never thought I would be at this moment where I'm launching my own podcast, but that's kind of the typical theme that you get from me. They actually called me the heart attack kid back in high school. I was a wrestler, and it seemed like, at the tail end of like every match, I would just pull out this incredible win or this incredible upset, and the crowd would go bananas, and it would feel really good on my end. And but that's been my life, Aaron. It's making, something out of nothing, really. I've had to work really hard, and I've gotten in a lot of trouble. I'm sure like a lot of our listeners have been in kind of the same path or the same journey that I was in, getting in trouble, running with the wrong people, alcohol, recreational, drugs. I mean, you name it, I've kind of been there. But what I've done differently is I've seen those kind of errors of my way, and I've clawed myself out of those dark spots in my life, and really have made something that I'm very proud to share with the world. My first goal in life was really to be a fireman. Coming out of high school, I wanted to be that, college wrestler. I wrestled a couple years in college, but that wasn't giving me the it wasn't giving me what I was looking for. I was looking for something new. I was looking for something fresh. And it was actually my mom who introduced me to the fire department. Came home one night, and I was kind of like down and out and just like not really motivated to go to the jobs that I was doing and, go to practice. And she just sat me down. She said, "Hey, Ryan, maybe this is something that you're interested in, and it could kind of fuel that fire that you've always had in your life." And she opened up a newspaper article, and it was, a fire cadet or a fire explorer. And I was, man, you could just right there. It was just like, man, this is actually very exciting for me. And I pursued that with the craziest passion and the craziest work ethic you would ever see. I was 21 when I got hired. I think it took me 2 years. You had to pass a really hard test. You had to compete with a lot of individuals. I think the first tests that I competed in, or that I was going through the process, there was almost 7,000 candidates, Aaron. And of those 7,000, I came out number one. And it wasn't because I was special. It wasn't because I was good in math and reading comprehension, everything that they tested you on. What I was passionate is I just wanted to be a fireman. I almost like wanted to put the wet stuff on the red stuff, right? And in my interview, I showcased that excitement. And here we are, fast forward 25 years later, I'm getting ready to retire, actually, like in a couple months, believe it or not. And now I'm turning over this new page. But it's almost, I have this same fire and passion with the companies that I'm doing right now, the financial, the real estate, and I have this same passion with the podcast. And I really do want that to come through with the listeners. Is I want to make sure that this is going to be a podcast you're going to enjoy, that you're going to connect and just come back to listen again and again, because it is going to offer really good gold nuggets and takeaways that they could really implement. because it's coming from someone who's, once again, been in the trenches, has come out the other side as a successful business owner, and has, been vetted and been tried and true, in a couple different industries that are very, very hard to get in and very hard to be successful, at that too. So hopefully that answered your question, Aaron.
Yeah, for sure. Who are some people maybe who influenced you? Maybe a role model or two. Anybody kind of stand out in your mind as far as somebody who really helped shape your life?
Well, this is a very special day for me. And it's a sad day because today, on the day that we're launching this podcast, and I'm going to kind of throw a curveball at you, Aaron, is the day that I lost my mom a year ago.
Mm.
I came on this podcast a little bit late. I was actually watching a video of the memories over my lifetime from my mom, and it's been a very difficult morning, but this is what I'm passionate about. I'm excited to share, to the world, like, my vision and my hopes with this podcast. And I don't think I'm answering your question, accurately, because I am a little bit all over the place right now. But I think that's good. I think it's a hard day for me, and this is what I want the listeners to take away is I'm just a human being, right? I'm at a very difficult time, in my life today, but I'm pushing through it. And I think that's what we all need to do in life is we need to just push through adversity, push through trials, push through those mental draining moments where we don't think we can do something, but we don't let fear and self-doubt sabotage our goals and our desires. So, that's the biggest thing on this interview that I want the listeners to take away is on the day that I lost my mom a year ago, I'm sitting here launching Lounge with Larz. I mean, if that is not like a an accomplishment, for me, I don't know what is, because my mom set me up for success, right? She has done everything in my life to get me where I'm at today. And now she's not here. But yet today, she's almost like with me on this podcast. And that's one of my huge role models is my mom, is because she's not here, but she's always been just leading me, and showing me the light of where I needed to go. So hopefully that answers your questions. It's definitely going to be my mom.
Yeah, that's amazing. What is one memorable life changing experience? I know I'm putting you on the spot a little bit here, but is there one kind of experience that kind of sticks out in your mind as, wow, the lesson I learned from this is going to really define and shape who I am in the future? I know you probably have a lot of them, but is there one that really sticks out?
I'm going to take a step back, and I'm going to let you ask me that question one more time so I could kind of gather my thoughts. And I want to make sure that I really lean into, the right answer for you.
Yeah, and so it's kind of taking a peek into your story, right? Your
Yeah.
story of Ryan Larson, and along the way, along your journey, I'm sure there's been ups and downs and lefts and rights and a lot of different things going on.
Yeah.
Is there one particular moment, experience, situation that will stick with you forever? You remember it vividly, like it happened yesterday. And the reason is because you really took so much away from that, whether you realized it in the moment or you realized it 10, 20 years later. Is there something that happened where you're like, wow, this thing really changed the way I see life, the way I see maybe family, career, basically your whole paradigm of looking at the lens that you look at life through? Is there one memorable experience that really shaped that more maybe sharply than others?
Yeah, I'm leaning into one memorable moment. And it was a difficult moment for me, but what I took away from it is how strong I was. And I'm gonna just kind of, kind of go back in time when I was I believe I was 8 or 9 years eight 8 or 9 years of age, Aaron, and we actually took a trip to, Nevada, Reno, Nevada, and my parents were celebrating, like, an anniversary, and I have, 2 sisters and a brother, and so we have a pretty large family, and we were all, hanging out in this room and, in this hotel room, and my parents left us for the night. My brother was, 11 or 12 years of age, and, we were safe, in the room for the night, and so they went out. My parents went out and had a nice dinner, started doing a little gambling in Nevada, and, I was a little different from, the rest of my family. You could almost call me the black sheep, right? My sisters and my brother, they just were really connected, right? And I always felt like I was, just outside of that dynamic. Well, that night, I think there was like a little argument, and me and my brother got into like a little fight, and so I think I went and got some ice in the hallway, and I remember my brother, like, locking me out of the room. And I wanna kinda paint a picture real quick, Aaron, is here I am, I think I was 8 or 9 years of age. I don't have a shirt on, all I have is shorts. I'm in Reno, Nevada, in essentially, in a casino, and I go back to the room with this ice bucket, and it's locked. And I'm kind of beating on the door, and, I'm like, "Robbie, let me in. Rob, let me in." And he doesn't let me in. And unfortunately, I didn't have a place to retreat to because I didn't know where to go. I'm in an unfamiliar place. And so I just started walking. I was so angry, I just started walking. I started walking through the halls because my brother wasn't letting me in. We got in this fight. So I was really upset. And I'm just walking through this hotel slash casino. And then, yeah, I enter the casino. And I mean, I see lights, and I see, slot machines, and I hear noise, and just it's buzzing with life, right? But there's no one my age, that's in this casino, and I'm, shirtless. I'm walking through this casino, and I'm trying to look for my mom and dad now. I'm like, trying to, like, almost like let them know what happened. And so, a security guard stops me, and he's like, "Son, you can't be in here. You don't have a shirt, you're underage, where's your parents?" And I was like, "I don't know." And so, uh, he started we started, like, walking together, and, it was I just ran away. I actually ran away from the security guard because I was actually scared of, like, what was gonna happen. So I just ran away, and he started chasing me, and I think I ran outside, like, an exit door. And it was a time, where it was really cold in Nevada, and I got away from this officer, and, but I was in this parking lot, and I had no idea where I was and what I was gonna do, and now I was, like, cold and shivering, and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, this is just really, really bad," right? And so I'm like, "What do I do now?" So I go back to enter the door. Well, the door's locked. So I'm actually locked outside the hotel. I've been locked out of 2 doors now, and I'm like, "This is just an awful day, or an awful night." And I'm like, "Okay, I know our" we had an Astro van. So if you could picture this, like, old school Astro van, we would, all the family would gather in there, and we would take these big road trips. And I remember, like, my dad parking this van in this parking lot. And so, I started, like, walking row by row to try to find my van, or to try to find our Astro van. And believe it or not, I find it. And that was kind of like my safe haven. It was like, okay, this is familiar to me. And so I go to the van, and we had this, like, ladder on the back of the van. And so what I do, Aaron, is climb up the ladder and I go to the top of the roof. And I'm cold, I'm tired, I'm sad, like I'm just an emotional wreck. And so I just fall asleep, and I fall asleep like I'm, like in a ball, and I'm just like I'm kind of feeling hopeless, right? And I don't know how long I fell asleep and how long I was like out there shivering, but I remember after some time my dad comes to the Astrovan, and I don't know, it was just a fluke, and he like sees my foot on top of the van. He climbs up the ladder, and I just remember my dad like, grabbing me, kind of consoling me. I'm shivering, takes me back to the room, and we just, you know, close the night down just like that. But the takeaway from that moment, Aaron, is of how strong I was. I knew from that moment that I was different, that no matter what, I can get through adversity. And so I think that was the defining moment where I was like, okay, I'm going to lean into this strong willed, strong minded, strong individual kid that I am. And that's what I've done my whole life. I just lean into really being this strong individual. But now growing up in my life, um, I've tried to take a back seat to being strong, and I'm trying to be now more vulnerable, because being strong it's important in life, but also too, you don't want to be too strong that you can't let people in on your journey, who you are, and stories that are going to connect. Maybe, with some of the listeners, just like this, right? I'm sure that these people out there have their own trials and tribulations. And that's what I'm looking to lean into is what was that defining moment in our life that made us choose who we're going to be, and kind of molded us into the person we are today. But now, were there good things about that person, or was there bad things about that person, and how can we change those? Because as we get older, we want to make sure that we're changing for the better, not for the worst, right? So I hope that answers your question. I think that was the pivotal moment in my life where I was like, this is who I am. My mind is like a rock, and no matter what, I can't be broken. And that was the moment that really defined like who Ryan Larson was. Um, and that's why, this podcast is going to be so fun to talk about, is just stories and connecting with people and like-minded individuals. So
Yeah, I love that. Thank you for sharing. And last but not least, what can people look forward to on future episodes? Why would someone want to subscribe and tune in? I think you mentioned it a couple of times before, but we'll give you one last opportunity to really, kind of let the audience or listeners know what they can expect.
you're going to expect just a very laid back podcast with really good people. I'm going to search out individuals who are going to be impactful, who are going to be dedicated, motivated to provide value for the listeners. I want to make sure that when we talk about something, we lean into, once again, either trials or tribulations that are going to be takeaways for the listeners to, implement in their daily lives. And maybe they could just, go back to the story that I just mentioned, and what are the takeaways from that story, or what are some things that maybe you felt that you connected with, because that's what I'm looking to do. I want to connect to the listeners, and I want the podcast, the guests that are coming on the podcast, to connect with the listeners as well. And I think connection and building that community and building that tribe comes through just breaking down those barriers of who people might think you are, but then you get to show them who you really are. And that's what I'm excited for, is to show, the audience and connect with the listeners who I am, who the guest is, and takeaways that continue to make us better in life.
Yep. Okay, amazing. Well, I think that wraps it up for today's episode. Any last thoughts, or you good to go?
Yeah, I'm excited. Just check back in with us. Keep jumping on these episodes. Once again, this is it's been a difficult morning for me already, but connecting with you, Aaron, it's been so exciting. Launching this podcast, it's been a long time coming, and it's something that I'm very excited to produce, to get out into the social media world. And yeah, I'm thrilled that Lounge with Larz is up and running, and I'm gonna keep cranking for you guys. I appreciate it.